Hey guys, it's Kim from the Beautiful Scar Project. I am the Chief Creative Officer, co-founder, and Executive Director of the Beautiful Scar Project. I'm also the Kim behind Kim's blog, so if you've been following along the last year, we launched a blog back in January of 2019. And you may have noticed that from June until December, the blog was really quiet and you didn't see anything. And so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit in my newest blog post, which actually was released yesterday. I kind of talked about the fact that my first initial inkling about this year is new year, now what? It was really challenging for me to go from a year where my children were alive to the next year when they weren't alive. And it was especially challenging between 2011 and 2012 because we lost Caleb in December. And so it was very quick between the time that we lost him and the time that 2012 came along. And so I get it, how it can be really tender to move into a new year where your baby isn't living and the year before your baby was living. And it's really challenging. It's really challenging to navigate. It feels weird. It feels something that maybe not everybody understands. And so first of all, I just wanted to say that I hope that your new year was peaceful, and that if you're really struggling with the turning of the page to the new year, that I get it. I feel you on that one. One of the things I also talked about in my blog was kind of 2019 and how 2019 was an awesome year for me. It's actually been one of the first years since I lost my babies that I have had just an incredible year all the way around. The weird thing about that, though, is that my depression came back in a really big way. So I don't know if anybody suffers from depression since you've lost your babes. I definitely have. I've taken medication for it. I've gone to therapy for it. And, I'm 10 years out from the loss of my first baby. I am 8 years out from the loss of Caleb. And so it feels very tender, the 10-year mark. The 10-year mark hit me really hard in February last year. And so I kept pushing and I kept writing and I kept trying to show up really well and be the best leader I can be and be the best person I can be and what have you. But it wasn't always on the level. Sometimes it was a fake it till you make it kind of thing, because my depression came back big time. And while I was excelling in other areas and Beautiful Scar Project was growing and we're trying new things and sometimes failing and sometimes succeeding, it was also debilitating because my depression came back in a big bad way, which for me, looks like isolation. I tend to isolate when I am feeling really depressed. I tend to overeat. That's my coping mechanism. One of two. I eat and I shop. Eating was the big one this year, and so I just ate all the things, and it didn't affect my weight. It didn't, what have you, but it affected me mentally for sure, because I wasn't feeding my body anything nutritious. It was just all processed all the time. And so it was weird in the fact that I've had such an amazing year, but I've also had such a really hard year. And the thing I think with time is that time plays tricks on us. It makes us think that, okay, I'm 10 years out, I'm 8 years out, I'm 5 years out. I've got this. I know my triggers. This is one thing I'm really good at, is triggers. I know my triggers intimately. I know when to anticipate them. I know what they look like. I know my response to them. I know what boundaries I need to put in place to ensure that I am not face planting when a trigger comes along. So I got this overinflated sense of like, I've got this handled. I've kind of become the grief girl in my circle of friends, in my circle of influence, whatever you want to call it. Whenever someone passes away, whether it's a baby, whether it's, a parent or a spouse or what have you, a lot of times people will call me or email me or DM me and say, hey, I have a friend who lost this person and I don't know what to say. How do I help them? What do I say? And as much as it sucks being known as the grief girl, I also kind of count it as an honor because I want to make sure that anybody who's grieving, that their people are showing up for them really well, because I know what it's like to have people show up, I mean, just in unbelievable ways and completely unexpectedly and just really like knock it out of the park. And then I also know what it's like to have people who is just bad. So I always want to make sure that grieving people are cared for really well and that their people show up for them in a really tender, present way. So it's fine. I'll be the grief girl. Give me a shout. I got you. But it kind of gave me a false sense of, hey, I've got this handled. I know exactly what to do. And I do, but I forgot that grief shows up differently in every season of your life. And grief will wait for you. And I had kind of ignored my grief for a while. I hadn't done anything just for myself for grief in a really long time. And so I kind of face planted this year with my grief because it kind of tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hi friend, hi, remember me? I didn't go anywhere. And there's some stuff you've been kind of overlooking. So I kind of had to go back to basics with my grief this year. And in order to do that, I needed to sit in my messiness. I needed to kind of, when it came to writing, kind of let that go a little bit because I wasn't sure. You know, the narrative in my head was saying, you're not a good writer. Why are you writing? You're not a good leader. Why are you leading? You're not being a good mama to any of your kids, whether it's the angels or whether it's your livings. And I let that voice win. And so, like I said, I isolated, I was overeating. I just wasn't showing up in the way that I really wanted to in some ways. And in other ways, I felt like I was killing it. So it was really a challenge for me to kind of suss through all of that and really sit with it and figure out what I thought was the cause, what I thought I needed to do to kind of get back on center. So a couple ways I did that. I did it with therapy, big proponent of therapy. She let me see the 10,000 foot view when I'm only seeing like an inch view, like an inch in front of my face. So that was huge, putting some health practices in place, putting some routines in place, and really creating and carving out time for me to sit and think about what I need and what I need moving forward. So I'm excited about 2020 because I feel like I've grown so much in these last 6 months. And I'm excited to be back on the blog. I'm excited for going back to basics, and that's what the Beautiful Scar Project is doing this year. So come along with us while we figure it all out, while we go back to basics and figure out how to serve our grief warriors well. Keep checking on the blog, keep checking out content like this, and we'll see you soon, grief warriors.